Here's what it's like to buy a home in Johns Creek, Georgia. In addition to talking about what the market is looking like there and the average prices and the amount of buyer demand there is there, we also really need to talk about what it's like for the home buying process in general. So really quick, when you do buy a home here in Johns Creek or anywhere in Georgia, you should typically expect 2 to 3 months for the entire process. That first month or two is going to be looking at homes online or looking at homes in person, doing showings of the home and actually seeing the home in person or virtual tours. And eventually, when we find the right home, we're going to submit an offer on that home. And once the seller accepts that offer, you typically have about 30 days until the closing day. The first few days of that period is going to be the inspection. So we're going to make sure to have an inspector out there or any kind of other checks that you want to do on the home to make sure that it's the right home for you. And then the next few weeks is going to be the lender making sure that you can be approved for a loan. And then the last week or so is the closing attorney making sure that the title is clear, because you don't want to be buying a home with like liens or tax problems. And so they want to make sure that the title can be transferred to a new buyer cleanly. And so overall, we're looking at about 3 months, and this is going to be the home buying process. But what the housing market looks like in Johns Creek will highly affect the entire home buying process. So let's take a look at those numbers. What's up, y'all? My name is Victor with Atlanta Suburban Living, and we put out videos every week about what it's like to live in Atlanta and the surrounding suburbs. And in Johns Creek, in the last few months, we've been seeing an average days on market for listings of 18 days. And so this means that the average listing stays on the market before finding a buyer for about 18 days, and then they start that contract period, that inspection period. This is a lot less than the average for all of Atlanta. So for all of Atlanta, it's like 30 days. And so 18 days is almost half that amount of time. So you could say there's like twice as much buyer demand in Johns Creek as there is in the average Atlanta suburb. This is definitely one of the most desirable suburbs to live in all of Atlanta. And so we need to really talk about how to get ahead of that competition when you are buying a home here in Johns Creek. And while 18 days is not really a long time for average days on market, it's a lot longer than it was during the spring of 2021, when it was like interest rates were 3% and everybody was trying to buy a house and it was a circus and there was like 20 offers for every house. During that time period, the average days on market was 4 days. It was super common to see homes come on the market one day and then go off the market the same day. It was like absolutely crazy. So it's nothing like the way it was back then, but there still is a little bit of competition. And then when it comes to average prices, in the last few months, we're looking at an average sold price in Johns Creek of $800,000. You can certainly find homes as low as $600,000 or $650,000 in Johns Creek. If you go anything lower than $600,000, you're going to be looking at like a fixer-upper. And then homes certainly go as high as $2 or $3 million in Johns Creek. Not unusual. So something to keep in mind if you're thinking about moving to this area. Of course, if you have any questions about living here in Johns Creek, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. I'm the one who answers those phone calls and those messages. I'm a local real estate agent here in the Metro Atlanta, and I'd be happy to help with your moving needs. Thank you so much to everybody who has reached out. I'm always happy to help. A few things that we can do to get ahead of all of this buyer competition. First of all, when a home comes on the market in Johns Creek, it's super important that we see it that week or that weekend in order to really get ahead of all of the other buyers. And then if you're looking at a home that just came on the market, like it just is new, just a few days on market, typically those sellers are looking for list price. You can't really like do lowball offers in Johns Creek because there's so many people wanting to live there and so many people willing to offer full price for a home. So if a home is new to the market, list price is usually what it takes to get that home. If you do find a home that's like 30 or 60 days on market in Johns Creek, which is not common, you can offer lower than list price, but you might be looking at a home that's got some problems, because 30 or 60 days on market for a home in Johns Creek is a long time. One big factor that really affects that average price is going to be the age of the home. So if we're looking at homes that are from 2004 or older, the average price in the last year in Johns Creek is about $700,000 $875,000. But if we're looking at homes that are 2005 or newer, the average price is $950,000. So this is certainly going to be a big factor and really going to affect the sold price of the homes here. A few examples of some homes that are currently on the market in Johns Creek. One of these is 10950 Glenhurst Pass in Johns Creek. It's a 5-bed, 5-bath, about 3,000 square feet, built in 1997. 0.3 acres, and they're asking $790,000. Also, 605 Rose Creek Circle is a 4-bed, 4-bath home, about 2,700 square feet on 0.4 acres, built in 1996, and they're asking $850,000. And then lastly, a newer build built in 2019, 4-bed, 5-bath, 4,300 square feet is 6180 Belmore Park Lane. They're asking $1.25 for this home. And so right away you can see that big difference in the newer homes versus the older homes and the price difference there. But definitely this is one of the best suburbs in all of Metro Atlanta. And there's no wonder why. One of the biggest reasons why so many people choose to live in Johns Creek is the public schools. I know we talk a lot about the public schools here in Georgia, but Johns Creek has the best of the best public schools. This is like where many people would say the best public schools in all of Georgia are here in Johns Creek. And so this is a big draw for many people. Another big one is safety. This is a very family friendly, very safe area. And so this is not the kind of area where you need to be like on guard or watch out when you're walking down the street. Nothing like that in Johns Creek. This is a very safe area here. And then another big one is the diversity that you find in Johns Creek. I know this is something that's super important to many of you, and is certainly important to my family and I, to be in an area with mixed ideas and races and cultures. And so this is certainly something that you find here in this city and a big draw for many people. And while there are some really great things about moving to this city, there's also some downsides to moving to the city. One of those things is the fact that it's so far from any of the interstate access. And so if you are like living in Johns Creek and working in Atlanta, and so you're making that commute regularly, it's not that Johns Creek is very far from Atlanta, it's that you don't have easy access to the interstate. And the interstate is the main way that many of the residents in the suburbs get to the city of Atlanta. So you kind of have to use some of these back roads to get to the interstate, which alone can take, 15 minutes or so just to get to the interstate. And then you add on the 45-minute or hour commute to Atlanta. And so that extra 15 minutes can sometimes be a pain in the butt for many people. But there are some other things too that are kind of some red flags or some downsides to living in Johns Creek. And some of these things are like people wouldn't even think about living in Johns Creek for some of these reasons. And so we really need to talk about some of those reasons as well. In fact, I made an entire video about the pros and the cons of living here in Johns Creek. You can check it out right here. I'll see you in the next one.